Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. Excuse me. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hello. Hey, good afternoon.
Hello, good to have you all. In the pre-show, we were chatting about some of the old stuff that used to go down in Flat Earth Debate and outside of Flat Earth Debate before it existed. And I'm hoping we can discuss some of the fallacies that we had used against us back then, and maybe put them into a bit of a top 5. Is that all good by you guys?
Yeah.
So, Brian, you started off with one that you said was pivotal in terms of the change of tone when it comes to debating globe believers. Let's call them at this stage. Do you want to repeat that and we'll go from there? Thanks.
Yes, begging the question. Do you want me to give the rendition, Nathan, of how it would take place?
Feel free, yes, please.
What would happen back in 2015 and 16 is they would beg the question, and you would have to agree to what they say as it was correct within their paradigm. But then when you tried to give a rebuttal, because you agreed, they would drown out any rebuttal and just state that you've already agreed it as the globe. And that's what they would do, because they were begging the question. But when it became a known thing that begging the question was a continuous tactic that they were using, thanks to QE, although he wasn't the first to point it out, but he used it himself in debate for years before Flat Earth, that once he pointed out that is what's known as begging the question, as they're pre-assuming their outcome, that changed absolutely everything.
So Brian ended with pre-assuming your outcome. So as an example that's outside of the subject matter, if I am to assume that Narnia is a real place that we can visit, then my argument will start, if Narnia is real, then we will be able to visit Narnia via a travel method called wardrobe. So my premise starts with the outcome being assumed. If I'm trying to prove that Narnia is real and I start with, if Narnia is real, that's begging the question, assuming the very outcome you're trying to prove. And all globe claims start with the assumption that Earth is a sphere. If Earth's a sphere, then we'll observe blah, 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 blah. We observe blah, 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 blah. Therefore, Earth's a sphere. So that's one of them. Ad hominem fallacy. I think it's the most overused fallacy that we have to encounter here. Anyone want to pick up on what an ad hominem fallacy is? And not, I'll explain it for the audience.
Offering an insult in the place of an actual argument.
Offering what instead of a reply to the argument?
An insult.
Perfect. An insult in lieu of a rebuttal. So my argument is that if Narnia is a place we can visit, then we will traverse wardrobes to get there, and we can traverse wardrobes to get there, therefore Narnia is real. That's my argument. So anybody got a response? Hopefully calling me an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Right, perfect. So my argument has form, but the form hasn't been addressed. What has happened is I've been called an idiot. Well, that's not a rebuttal to my argument that if Narnia's real, we can enter Narnia through wardrobes, we do enter Narnia through wardrobes, therefore Narnia is real, you just call him an idiot. That's an ad hominem fallacy, aka an insult, in lieu, this is the most critical part, of a rebuttal. So just calling somebody an idiot isn't an ad hominem fallacy. Somebody who's put an argument to you that you ignore and call them an idiot is an ad hominem fallacy.
Ready for the false dichotomy yet?
I would say that's going to be top 3, so you might as well do that. Yeah, go ahead. So false dichotomy fallacy, John. What's that?
It's when you offer up 2 positions, but there's more than just those 2 positions to take, or it's misrepresenting your opponent's position with your position.
Yeah, so you've thrown a couple of other elements in there that are also fallacious, but the overall structure of a false dichotomy is to hold 2 positions against one another, and the one that's held as the correct one is the one that's proven to be true in that specific set of circumstances with one position versus the other. Well, neither position might be true, and there might be more positions. So stacking them up in a false dichotomy if it's 2, or trichotomy if there's 3, and so on and so forth. There might be more positions, neither position might be correct. And as John's thrown into the mix also, the position that's being held up might not even be your position. So their position is Narnia is real, and they say comparatively concave Earth versus Narnia. And you go, hold on, I don't claim concave Earth. Well, we're going to be holding it up against Narnia anyway, because false dichotomy, there's only 2 choices here, Narnia or concave Earth.
Well, I actually had an example, the models that would be brought up. I'd say, how does that work on a flat Earth model?
Right. Yeah, that's spotting it at the subtlest earliest stages, which is to say, before they've really positioned it, asking you that question forces you to answer a question that has their model versus your model as the base of the fallacy being used, right, John?
Yeah, but the most interesting part about that, it was when they were bringing it up, was it was our model against our model, and they were claiming one of our models.
Hold that under your belt. We'll come back to that. So I want to cover stereotyping fallacy last. But before we do, I've used it once or twice already, which is the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. And I've left this till near the end because it ties in with one other fallacy, which is the begging the question fallacy. So just to break down the affirming the consequent, and then we'll do stereotyping, and then we'll summarise all of them and put them in a top 5. So affirming the consequent is to take a premise that you assume in this instance. So begging the question of Narnia, I assume Narnia is real. And if Narnia, as I assume, is real, then we traverse wardrobes. We traverse wardrobes, therefore Narnia is real. If P, Narnia is real, then Q, travel via wardrobe. Q, travel via wardrobe, therefore P, Narnia real. That's called an affirming the consequent, or formal logical fallacy known as affirming the consequent. Formal because it's got form. The form being if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. Anybody got anything to add on affirming the consequent? Or do you want me to just give a globe example and move on to stereotyping?
Well, they rarely give the full fallacy.
Sorry.
That's correct, John. Go ahead, one deck.
I was just confirming, is that like the same thing as because the stars appear to move, they presume that we live on a globe? Is that?
Yes.
Is that an example?
Perfect example, because I can give John's example within that. So that you wouldn't even necessarily have to say more than a few words, therefore not give the formal logical fallacy its true form. So you just say, star rotation, idiot. And what you've actually done is 2 fallacies. That would be an ad hominem fallacy, given before the rebuttal even comes, and star rotation, duh. Well, what does that mean? Because they're not actually giving it as a claim, are they? They're expecting you to have enough understanding of what they're saying to extrapolate out their formal logical fallacy, which is as follows. If the Earth is a sphere rotating, we will observe star rotation. We do observe star rotation, therefore Earth's a sphere rotating. If P, Earth a sphere rotating, then Q, star rotation. Q, star rotation, therefore P, Earth rotating. So it's if P, then Q, Q, therefore P, a formal logical fallacy. You don't need to form that. if your opponent's got a reasonable understanding of your position. In this case, star rotations claim to be caused by Earth turn, Coriolis drift, Earth turning beneath the stars. So you don't have to say all that, or say, if Earth's a turning sphere, then we'll see the stars moving because we're moving beneath. We do see the stars moving because I assume we're moving beneath, therefore I prove we're moving beneath as a turning sphere.
But the problem with that is that it leads to you as the opponent, if you don't know what they're doing, to basically agreeing to a reversal of the burden of proof, because you end up as the more naive opponent trying to prove that it's not the stars rotate, not that don't rotate. The star rotation is not due to Earth rotation. You know what I mean? It's like it's their claim when they say star rotation. They're begging the question. It's up to them to prove that the Earth is rotating at that point.
Right.
But
So that's multi-layered. So you've added
Yeah.
an extra fallacy that I wasn't going to necessarily throw in there. But reversal of burden tends to be something that a more advanced debater would use. If my opinion's correct, I would say that's the case, but you might disagree. I don't care. But either way, reversing the burden, as Brian's just detailed, is where you take something like the example that we've just given with an affirming the consequent. If Earth turns, then we'll see star rotation, therefore Earth turn. But you reposition that one layer lower in fallacy terms and say, why do you explain, or how do you explain how the stars are rotating? What's your explanation for it? Now, the reason that's a burden of proof reversal fallacy because you may not make any claims about why the stars do what they do. Have you made a claim about what the stars do, or have you postulated it, or have you put it down as a claim? No, but they do. The Globers claim that they've got the cause of that movement of the stars. It's Earth turning beneath. That's their claim. So they reposition their positive claim that's not proven and actually asserted with fallacy to being your issue to solve and justify. It's like, I haven't made a claim about what the stars do. That's your stupid proof that doesn't work out of Coriolis. Why am I having to explain why the stars rotate? I don't know. I'm not making a claim about it. You are. But they flip the burden. They reverse the burden onto you having to explain why the stars do it. And early days in Flat Earth, everybody, including me, fell victim to it. Oh, I've got to suddenly explain why the stars do what they do because the globe claims that they do it because the Earth's turning, so therefore I better come up with an explanation for it. No. Challenge them to prove why they say it with some sort of evidence that that's the case, not just assuming that Earth's turning in the first instance and that the thing you have observed is a proof of that thing you've assumed. And then because you've assumed it and you've looked at it, it proves it. No. Definitely not reasonable to then say you should be justifying how that is working based on their claim that it proves something they're claiming, i.e. globe turn. So that's the last before. We're going to have 6, unfortunately, but there we go. Maybe have a top 5 out of it. Maybe drop ad hominem. Stereotyping fallacy. Does everyone know? Does anyone want to have a bash so it's not just me talking?
It's like where they tie you with the same brush as somebody else, or presume that you are something. Or
Yes, that's correct. Hey, Alwyn. What what region of the country are you from, One Deck?
Manchester.
So you're a thief then?
Yeah. yeah.
So that's a stereotyping fallacy, also kind of racist or whatever. Not racist, prejudice in whatever way it is, it doesn't matter. But stereotyping meaning that everybody who's from Manchester is a thief. Obviously not the case. It's a very nice place. There's plenty of rich people who don't rob from you in Manchester. It's total nonsense, in fact. It's a major city. So, yes, it's got crime. It's a major city, but not everybody in Manchester's a thief. But because there's a high crime rate, or higher than maybe the average across the country, you can infer, by stereotyping fallacy, that all Mancs are thieves. Yep. So all flat earthers believe Earth is a pizza rising up at 9.8 metres per second squared through a sky vacuum with boats falling off the edge of it. You believe that because you are a flat earther, don't you believe that? Now let's argue about how your pizza pie compares to my globe. So that's false dichotomy and stereotyping fallacy. Any more to add on this? And then we'll stick them in a top 5.
Well, yeah, because every time they bring up the globe claim, they're actually stealing our claim of a celestial sphere, flat plane. So
Okay.
they don't actually have a model.
Let's break that down. So originally, before globe even existed, there's a model known as the celestial sphere model, still used today. Look it up, the ephemeris. But that model is an angle measurement to Polaris. So as you back away from Polaris, it'll drop towards the horizon in angular terms by 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles, I believe. Is it 69 nautical miles, 60 statute miles? Either way, it's an angle reduction. So i.e., what you're measuring it with a tool that's measuring 2 straight lines decreases towards the horizon as you back away from it. Now, using the tool that's like a protractor, a curved edge around it, you can draw the lines, the baseline 0 to 180 degrees. That's the ground you're standing on. And then you can draw another line up to however many degrees the star is in the sky. Polaris, in this example, at 45 degrees for the sake of argument. Well, that is an angle with a curved edge tool used to get the angle, the 2 straight lines. Now, the tool is referencing the ground, which is 0 to 180, the flat baseline, and the line up to the star. Well, that can be derived by a flat plane and then put into a perspective view known as the celestial sphere. Now, that is a model of your view of the stars at any given location. So, with that in hand, you can then take it one step further and say that the outside edge of the tool that you're measuring represents you moving physically around the measuring tool. Ergo, the ground that you've just measured on the tool as a 0 to 180 degree flat baseline is now the ground that represents the tool itself. So it's not that you're measuring 2 lines coming closer together, i.e. the star moving towards the horizon. Now you're backing around a curved edge, the edge of the tool you just used to get this effect measured. Therefore, the assumption goes from flat plane in the celestial sphere model to curved surface if you represent the surface as the tool you've just measured that derivation or drop towards the horizon with. So therefore, to conclude John's point, the celestial sphere model has been utilised to create a curved edge in line with the tool you use to measure that flat plane and give you the perspective view of the stars. So the heliocentric sphere Earth model was derived from the flat plane model. Therefore, when John explains, this is long-winded, that you've got a false dichotomy that uses our model, he's talking about the derivation from flat plane celestial sphere model to globe Earth outside edge of a tool model. Both flat plane models to begin with, both required elevation angles off a flat plane with a tool that happens to have a curve that's later going to be called the surface. Therefore, false dichotomy with 2 flat Earth models at the heart of the fallacy. Right, John? Hopefully that's a good enough summary. Not bad.
Oh, that was glorious. Yeah, that's the hilarious part.
They're
that's
reifying
the same-
the arc scale of the sextant, or sorry, one second. They're reifying the arc scale of the sextant or protractor into a curved Earth surface. That's what they're doing.
Spot on. So their globe model is a flat Earth model. It's derived from measurements from flat planes. Go ahead, Wandek.
Yeah, I was just saying, so like the 15 degree per hour movement or drift they claim is of the globe, that degree measurement was obviously measured with an angle measurement from a flat baseline.
That's correct.
Which will take the globe away straight away because you've measured it from a flat surface to get the angle measurement in the first place.
Right, so if you watch the sun move towards the horizon, you can say how many degrees it moves as you measure it through your tool. As it reaches its sunset point, it's almost at 0 degrees on your tool. Okay, so we've got 0 to 90 degrees being from the horizon to the point above your head for the sun. Okay, so you're measuring it, dropping angle towards the horizon. Okay, now just imagine that what's actually happening is you're stood on the top of the protractor, and what's happening is you're not measuring an angle decreasing towards the horizon. Now the protractor's turning with you stuck to it. And that's what's happening. It's a degree of turn on the protractor not a degree of you measuring it off a flat plane with a tool that can only work that way.
Yeah, you already pointed out it only goes up to 90 degrees. Not even the 100 and not even 91. It's always 90 degrees, no more than that. Because they like to beg the question that the 16 nautical miles times 360 degrees will give you the radius of the Earth. It doesn't work like that. The 60 nautical miles is only from roughly 15 degrees above the horizon to the 90 degree, no further than that.
Yeah, the angular movement of the sun is basically an azimuth degree measurement. And that requires a flat plane from north to east to south to west.
Timing as ever from 10th Man. So this is the depiction of the sun's movement as I've just described it to you. So your position is here, and you're measuring this blue line, and that's going to represent your protractor. And as you watch the sun from your zenith above your head move towards the horizon, it's going through the degrees, the two straight line measurements, on a protractor. That's how you measure it. This is you. But if you then say the protractor, the curved arc of that tool, is actually the surface, and you're stood at the top of it, and as you spin it, the sun moves because you're spinning. That's a way of bastardizing an angle measurement to give you the azimuth, aka azimuthal equidistant projection. That map is just a measurement of the angle measurements of the movement of the sun that you can represent from a given central location. In that case, North Pole, I believe. But that's all it is. So that's what you're measuring. Doesn't mean you stood on the outside edge of the tool, but that's what the globe Earth is. Thanks, 10th.
You're welcome.
Is there any... Sorry, one day, come on.
No, nobody said anything.
Oh, sorry. Is there any real world measurement or any measurement that you could call it, anything you could call a measurement that, now I know there isn't, but it's just as a question, that doesn't require a flat plane first? Because we have navigation, we have surveying, we have air travel, you know, all the things that use large expanses of land, or earth, let's say, land and water. Let's just say we'll add in water with navigation and air travel. Like, is there anything that doesn't have to start with a flat plane?
No.
Like, I can guarantee you
no, there isn't. They all use a flat plane. Earth is measured, navigated, and observed flat. Doesn't matter if you're on the sea or in the air. You're navigating over on a flat plane. If you're building on it, you're building on a flat plane. That's how it works. That's what it is.
Yeah, everything, every single zero. Every zero in the world, if you're talking about anything with large expanses of area, that zero is always a horizontal baseline. You know, it always has to be a horizontal baseline. You know, zero on the altitude indicator on an airplane is a horizontal. You know, zero for a right angle is always horizontal. You know, it has to be. You know, so the only real world zero, and we are talking about navigation, surveying, air travel, etc., is going to be a horizontal baseline.
Right, I can't be bothered to put this into a top 5. I think we've done enough on fallacy. Should do a bit of housekeeping. 25 minutes into the show.
That was the proto-fallacy, by the way, when you introduce Earth as a sphere after measuring it flat.
Yeah. It is the proto-fallacy, isn't
Housekeeping
it?
fallacy.
Yeah, you're just hung up on the flat Earth measurement we need first. Don't get hung up on that flat Earth measurement that we need first to measure anything on a sphere. Let's just concentrate on us acquiring the flat Earth angle measurement, and then what we do with it on a sphere, we'll focus on that bit. Okay, don't get hung up on us needing a flat Earth angle first.
Yeah, the standards are too high on this show.
I think,
we should
John,
let
you
them-
should.
Sorry.
Just give them the
Sorry,
angle. Just give them it. Let them have it flat first. Let them acquire those two straight lines to the celestial object that they're measuring. Let them have it off a flat plane. Because obviously once they've measured it off a flat plane, it's game over. Doesn't matter what they do after that.
I'd like to have John. Well, go on, Arvin. I'll go after you.
I was just going to say it's all housekeeping fallacy, right? Every time that we refer to, well, housekeeping question related arguments, that's basically a housekeeping fallacy to the ballers because there's nothing they can do with that.
I'd like John to. I'd like John to comment on Eratosthenes and Al-Biruni and the way they did it as well.
Well, they use Earth as their baseline to measure angles to celestial objects or to mountains. So that Earth had to be flat for their initial measurement. I mean, it's a lot simpler than most people think, I think.
But it's like a
You just need
based
to ask
assertion.
MC Tunes because MC Tunes now he understands how it goes. It must go like that. Flat plane.
Yeah, and Zanuck. Yeah, we're going to need a flat plane first.
That's
Yeah,
a
that was
based
the best.
assertion fallacy. Get it? A based assertion fallacy?
Oh, it's definitely baselineless. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as Earth curve.
I'm sorry, nobody seemed
You're
to
not
got it.
expected to
Based
observe the
assertion
geometrical
fallacy.
horizon.
Yeah, you
Based
are if you're a
assertion
globe believer.
fallacy, come
Go ahead,
on.
Darwin.
Arvin's still going on with the pun that he did.
Yeah, it's not even about a baseline. It's based assertion fallacy. That means an assertion that has been fundamentally based. So you actually did prove it, and you call it a fallacy then, right? A based assertion fallacy. The opposite of a baseless assertion fallacy.
So you're proving the
You're not
opponent's
supposed
point.
to explain puns.
But otherwise, you don't get it.
That's the point.
It's I'm just,
Nathan,
No,
he
not
broke.
getting
Hold
it is
on.
not the point. You're supposed to
Nathan,
get it.
No, Nathan, he broke a very important rule.
No, just don't
Of
mention it. We'll move
engagement.
on. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Negative.
See question
Plane
number one.
instruments account for the Coriolis deviation. They compensate for it
What compensates for
somehow. The instruments of the airplane.
it? Magic Coriolis button, accounting for things that aren't happening? No, I don't think so.
Oh,
No.
Oh,
They
my
just
man.
they project a hologram downward for those that are seeing them seeing themselves basically deviate in relation to the plane. So plane sends out a hologram to kind of overcompensate and make it appear like it's not deviating. See, it is still deviating though.
Making this up.
Yeah, the avionics account for that, so I don't have to back up my
Wait.
bullshit assertion.
Did Mr. Pilot come back and tell us which of his fancy instruments account for an illusion only seen from the ground? Did
No.
he tell us that?
No, I
No.
didn't come
No.
back
I
yet.
just
Oh,
explained
okay.
it.
No.
He has a holographic
Oh,
projector downward. So those that are seeing the Coriolis deviation seems to them like it's not deviating, right?
Yeah, that's the point. That's the consequences. What Arwin's saying is, if what the pilot said was true, then he'd press a button, and a guy who's observing the plane from a rotating platform will see a projection of the plane correcting for the rotation that the person is observing the plane with, so that what they see is a plane still moving in a straight path.
Exactly.
Wait,
Magic
so is
Coriolis
that
button.
Would that button be right next to the button of, oh, let me account for this runway that happens to be moving while I'm trying to land on it? Is it next to that button?
Yeah, again, the natural consequences of having a Coriolis deflection, that would be you observing things from rotating bodies. In this instance, from a globe believer's point of view, from a rotating globe Earth. So you look up from a rotating globe Earth at a plane travelling in a straight line and go, check it out, it looks like, not really, but looks like it's curving. That plane that's moving in a straight path with absolutely no effect on it whatsoever because it's me turning beneath it that sees this effect, called Coriolis. So therefore, the plane's moving straight but only looks like it's curving because I'm turning beneath it. Now you can exaggerate that effect by turning beneath a plane on a roundabout, making the rotation much faster. Then you see it corkscrewing. But the plane's still just travelling straight while you watch it seem to corkscrew, because you're turning beneath it. Now, for the plane to account for that effect, it would mean that it'd have to produce a little hologram that was anti-corkscrew, non-reality visual effect from you on a roundabout counteracting button. Right, Owen?
It's going to be pretty expensive advanced holographic technology in order to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or to put it another way, absurd. But because there's a guy claimed to be on a turning Earth watching planes seem to drift, that's Coriolis effect, that means Earth's turning under the plane. So if you're watching the plane seem to drift because it's claimed, as it is, that Earth turns underneath stuff, Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour, and you happen to be standing on the runway, then you and the runway are moving under the plane at 15 degrees an hour, and that's a massive problem for landing. Do they account for that? No, it isn't happening either. Nobody's watching planes seem to drift, and nobody's accounting for runways moving under the plane at 15 degrees an hour. For the guy on the runway, cemented to the ground, in the tower, to see planes looking like, but not really drifting, as they try and approach the runway straight, and it moves beneath them. That doesn't happen. There is no Coriolis drift. It's all nonsense. Earth's not turning underneath anything.
Also, by
How would you?
just wanted to say that the button next to that, the holographic Coriolis compensation button, is the button for the autopilot to actually adapt to the curve of the Earth, right?
Yeah, that button check.
The one that's going to make you crash very quickly.
Gravity button.
Yeah, the button the chocolate's talking about is next to the button that accounts for the 800-mile backward takeoff. That one.
Is that next to the button?
Yeah.
Is that next to the button that forget everything you was ever taught while you was learning how to fly a plane button? That the ground is actually stationary and not moving.
That one's labelled
Is it next to that
autopilot.
button?
Didn't he say a day after? Didn't someone come on the show a day after that pilot came on and say, after the show ended, he admitted that at 50,000 feet he never saw curvature?
Yeah, but see what? Curve of the Earth is represented to a globe head as the horizon. So either he's an idiot or blind, or he doesn't understand what their own claim is, because the horizon's supposed to be Earth curve. So he's saying at 50,000 feet he can't see the horizon.
Well, I'm just saying that because we're getting stories of people on passenger planes looking through a window that's curved to begin with and saying, oh, yeah, I've seen Earth curvature from an airplane at 30,000 feet. Now, I've been on a plane many times, so have you, many members on the panel, and we've never seen it. And here's a pilot saying, yeah, I've never seen it 20,000 feet high.
Let's get this clear. Everyone can see the horizon at almost any altitude. However, the horizon is an Earth curve.
Yeah, the part that really stands out to me is when I tried to distinguish to this guy between the difference of you having to account for an observation made from the ground and you actually in the plane having to negotiate a moving ground. And he refused to do that. He's stuck. It's like they hear Coriolis and they have to argue that, as opposed to arguing what they should be arguing for, is how is your plane landing on a runway that's moving?
Right. In the same way, Neil deGrasse Tyson says that field goals are assisted by Earth's rotation, i.e. Earth turns under the football and causes it to go through the goal. That's Earth turning underneath the football. Therefore, Earth is turning underneath aeroplanes as they come into land? Yeah, that doesn't happen.
When you say 800 miles an hour backwards, is he landing backwards, Chocolate?
Depends where you are. If he's taken off from the equator, it'd be 1,000 miles, but we typically use Charlotte to LA. So 800 miles an hour is probably why he's saying that.
Well, being that I worked at an airport for almost a decade and I had to actually marshal planes in, none of them actually ever landed backwards. No. Sorry.
Did you ever do the moonwalk stuff that you occasionally see on YouTube with people with those lights, doing the cool dance as you're ushering them in.
Yeah,
telling them to
you
go.
get bored out there sometimes. Got it. And
Well,
I worked at sometime when during the winter it's cold, so you want to dance to keep yourself a little warm.
It makes sense because with the light, the chocolate was light on his feet, so it would seem that way.
Yes, sir.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there. I have an angle to it, and I can see it.
An angle to it, or are you standing on the top of a protractor called Globe Earth?
Protractor
I
Earth.
think that you're going to need a geometric horizon for that.
You will.
And
If you
the
stood on a
one-
protractor,
the
you've
one
got
we
a
can't
geometric
see.
horizon called Earth
The
curve. That's
model-
right.
The model for that globe Earth is based on a flat plane anyway, so...
You can't get an angle if you're standing on the curved end of anything. You can't get an angle from a curve.
Right.
Wait, Arwen, which geometric horizon were you talking about? The one we wouldn't expect to see, or the one that we've been told for years and years that blocks boats and buildings in the distance? Which one of those?
The one you have a straight line of sight to, despite light being curved.
Yeah. How do you measure over there?
You
Just
don't-
go over there, and then when over there moves over there, you keep measuring it. Sooner or later you'll get there.
Right, you don't need to measure it, you just need to calculate where it's supposed to be.
How do you measure your direct line distance to a moving object? How is that possible?
I'm sure you could
When you don't know where
calculate
the mojo-
that.
Sorry?
That sounds like maths that somebody could easily do if they were a good mathematician. I'm sure Adam could do that if you challenged him.
But you didn't let me finish. If you don't know where the thing is in the first place,
Oh, now
you
you're just
don't know.
making things
Like, how
too
do you
hard.
measure a distance when you don't know where the thing is?
Nobody
Well,
could
you
do that,
still
Brian. You're
haven't-
totally unreasonable.
Because
You
it
can
has an
still-
address.
Hold on, you can still use the angle, and then with maths, you end up with the sort of presuppositional position. But you still got to confirm that it's actually there then, though.
It's that the geometric horizon doesn't like to be where it's supposed to be. Doesn't like to be home, right? Because at 1 foot observer height, the address for the geometric horizon would be 1.22 miles away. Not there. Why is it not there? Does it like to be home?
Hills
It's
like
like-
to move occasionally. You know, if you're a hill getting in the way of stuff, sometimes it's easier to be not in the way of it, but behind it. You know, hills often get up and move chocolate. That's how hills behave, don't they?
Now, the geometric horizon is like an ex-husband. You needed it to make that family, but then they went away again, right?
Wait, the
Just still-
geometric horizon
What?
went to go get cigarettes?
I
Yeah,
can't
but
believe
never
this.
came back.
Owen's just compared Earth curve at the horizon, formerly known as a geometric Earth curve edge, to a what's it called? Estranged partner, correct?
Yep.
And
Correct.
Chocolate said
Well,
he's
no, it
just
can't even be
gone to
that.
get cigarettes. I mean, this is all getting very dark very quickly.
Well, no, if the horizon was geometric, then you wouldn't be able to measure an angle from the surface of Earth.
Now, they've told us they know the distance to the sun, 93 million miles, but don't they need R to get that?
I was just returning videotapes.
Yeah, correct. And they also refer to the moon. That's why they say it's 400 times bigger and 400 times further away than the moon. So even though it seems the same size, they're not the same size. So they say. So they base on that, not to have a local sun. They cannot have a local sun.
No.
Just
That sun
to-
might give divergent rays, corpuscular rays. Oh, we do have corpuscular rays.
Oh, one deck.
I was just saying, going back to the fallacy list we was before, it's just reminding me how you can get dragged into these things. Like, I can't remember if you can just remind me of the name when I explain it. I was talking about the distance of the sun with somebody, and the Perihelion and aphelion came up, and I'm saying, well, no, it's so many miles closer at perihelion or further away. So I've fallen into the trap of giving the sun a distance, arguing the fact that it's further at one time of year and closer at the other. Which fallacy was that again? Sorry.
Well, that's you begging the question on their behalf.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I fell for that
one deck, it's correct. The sun is further from you and closer to you at different times of the year. That is actually correct.
within their model. Right.
No, I know that, but they've put a mileage to that, haven't they? They've put it. It's 90. I think it's something like 2 million miles.
Hold on one deck. I think Brian's about to get into launching into actually claiming about nearer and further away in reality. Let's just see if he's going to make that claim.
I'm sharpening my knives for when he does it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the sun will appear to be further from you and closer to you at different times of the year, and you can do an angular size measurement of the sun 2 particular times of the year, and you can see that there is a definitive angular size difference.
Okay, he's got enough weasel words in there for me to not stab him. Okay, yeah, appears to. What Brian's describing is, in winter, if you watch the sun, it will remain closer to the horizon. It'll not gain as much angular altitude, right? The elevation angle measurement that you take from that sun will be decreased through winter, i.e., or to put it another way, it doesn't get as high in the sky. How does that translate to distance, though? Nearer, further. You've said appears already, you weasel.
Yeah, no, but they see that's where the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn come from. That's if you look at the 21st of June and the 21st of December, you will see that the GP position of the sun will be on the 21st of June will be at the Tropic of Cancer, and on the 21st of December will be at the Tropic of Capricorn.
And that's a location, is it?
Well, it's a GP position. I don't know.
No, you mean those lights will be above the ground somewhere?
Well, that particular light will have a different position, a different GP position. It will never have. The
GP's real. The guy from Discord back on Thursday, I can't remember who it is to credit him with saying this. Just because we have the distance along the ground to where the light in the sky is above, doesn't translate to nearer or further, or in fact anything in terms of the distance to the light. It doesn't translate. You told me this, Brian.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that we have the tropics and the GP positions at those 2 different times of the year. We have the angular size change at those 2 different times of the year. So, we can take as an inference that the sun is in a different position in the sky at those 2 different times of the year.
Yeah, that's the extrapolation that gives you the equator. I understand the extrapolation in terms of taking the midpoint for those 2 claimed distances. But, okay, if I ask you to put that to one side for a moment and explain why I can't get the height of the moon, for instance. If I've just got a triangle to it, right? I can locate where it is in terms of its GP, where it's above on the ground. Therefore, I've got the hypotenuse, right? Therefore, I've got the other side of the triangle to give me the height, haven't I, Brian? I know we haven't, but can you explain why I haven't?
Well, we don't have any idea what height any of the celestial bodies are at, or what they actually are. We don't know that. We only have the GP positions. So we don't have the hypotenuse, the length of the hypotenuse. We don't have that. We only have an angle. We don't have the length of the angle. And that's why they use, with celestial navigation, and it can be continually used, the zenith angle to give us a horizontal and adjacent distance.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And further to that, if I take an angle measurement from altitude, it won't alter the angle, will it?
No, that's another thing as well. If you're in an airplane,
I just need to know.
The same angle.
Yeah. I'm getting there. So, given that if you raise up in altitude, it doesn't increase the height because of the distance increasing or decreasing, is that right? Yeah, the angle would decrease on the hypotenuse as you raised up if it was a physical item at a physical height, but it doesn't. Therefore, when it's at your zenith and moves through the angles towards the horizon, why would that in any way infer that it's further or more distant just because the land at its GP is further and more distant?
Well, it doesn't prove it.
Boom!
But it does imply it.
I understand that. I understand it's implied, and that implication has been turned into the equator for the midpoint, hasn't it?
Yes.
Right, but we're at the stage now where we can honestly admit that doesn't necessarily follow in terms of saying, because when I measure an angle to the sun over this GP, that's, let's say for easy maths, it's a mile away. The sun is over there, it's very near to my zenith, it's only a mile above the ground. I put an X on the ground, then I measure it again at the I don't know, 4 or 5 hours later, and I go, right, look, it's only 30 degrees off the horizon. The piece of land it's above is, let's say it's 1,000 miles away. So you go, well, obviously the sun is further away. I say wrong. I say you can't make that inference.
Yeah, you can't prove it. You can't prove it because you don't know what the sun is. You don't know how it was created, and you don't know where it is. You just know that it appears to be up above you and at a distance.
You know where it's above, i.e., you know the land that if you were stood at that particular location and you looked up, that star or celestial body would be directly above your head at your zenith. You know that, but it doesn't give you anything more about the star itself other than where it's going to be above at a particular time.
It's only still the angle. Because if you go up right in that moment, is it still going to be there? Are you going to see its angular size grow as you go up towards it? I don't think so.
It's one of the most...
Every hour it moves 15 degrees. We do know that.
Sure, we can look at the mechanics of it, but it's the most amazing and wondrous thing in our existence, as far as I'm concerned. It's absolutely majestic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but we're still talking past each other, though.
Talking what?
Because we're still talking past each other. Because when we talk about elevation angles from Polaris, this is to give us the grid system that we have, the lines of longitude and latitude. So then, after that, you look at the other wandering stars and you say, I wonder where this star will be above my head using this grid system. Oh, it's over here. X marks the spot. And then later on, you'll say, oh, actually, now, X amount of time later, it's over this other side over here. So I moved from the grid system, this point to that point. But we're just moving on a flat plane, on a grid system, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we're not talking past each other. Yeah, I agree. If you could keep up with that pace, you could keep the star at your zenith and move a massive distance, right, over the course of a day. Or night. Whatever, follow the sun. You know, people sometimes try and do it in jets and keep it at a certain angle above the horizon, or try and increase its angle with respect to the horizon. And they call that catching up with the sun, while they increase its angle of elevation above the horizon as they move across the distance towards the GP that it's above. Now, all of those things, they stand true. I appreciate that we've taken that information from those stars. It just doesn't tell us about the stars and what they are, or, more importantly in this point, where they are.
Yeah, we can prove a geometric change, but we can't prove a celestial change.
Exactly. We can prove a geometric position at a given time and prove it. We can stand at that position and look above and say, in 3 minutes, that star's going to be directly above me, and it will be. But it just proves the position below it, rather than the position that you're looking up at.
Well, going back to what I said to one deck, if you take one deck thought he was wrong because he felt he walked himself into a trap by talking about Perihelion and aphelion. But the thing about it is that they've just taken GP positions and they've reified them into some other big crazy thing, and that's really all they've done. So good deck could argue that the sun does appear to be in a different location in the sky at different times of the year. And it obviously appears to rise in different parts of your local horizon, sorry. But that doesn't, it's faulty logic to then turn that into a 3 million mile difference in a heliocentric model. So he wasn't that wrong to argue the point, but.
Well, even in a flat Earth conception, right? You still don't get a distance to the sun.
I mean, I definitely get colder when my oven comes 3 million miles closer to me. That checks out.
When you evoke GPs,
context. Hold on.
It's game over.
Hold on. We've just stepped from Brian saying the sun appears to be further away in winter. It hugs the horizon, if you will, therefore, in terms of its GP, where that would be versus over you directly. Obviously, it's therefore where you are. Well, it isn't. But that's Brian's point. What Chocolate's just said is, when he opens his oven and moves the oven further away, he gets hotter. Now, the reason he's saying that is because in the heliocentric model, even though from your vantage point, watching the sun on the horizon, appearing to hug it at a lower elevation angle, versus it being above you and at your zenith potentially during the summer, depending on where you are. Sometimes it doesn't reach your zenith. But either way, higher in the sky. The heliocentric model would say that when the sun is higher in the sky and you're scorching hot, that's the sun actually further away from you in winter. So you've got the sun closer in winter, further away in summer.
Yep. I mean, that definitely checks out when I go outside and it's like 7 feet of snow up on the ground. Oh, but the tilt explains that. Yeah, sure.
Well, that's what I was about to say, because if you're standing like in a fire and you tilt yourself away at 15 degrees, you don't burn up, right?
Yeah. I mean, what kind of logic is that?
Not 50,
Seriously.
it's 23 point something or other. It's 66.6 off horizontal. Why is it 30?
23.4. 23.4.
There you go. I know why I said
there
15
is the other
degrees.
element to it.
Yeah. Go on,
where
sorry, Brian.
The sun appears. Sorry, Nathan, go on.
No, I was saying go on, Brian.
Okay, sorry. There is the other element where the sun appears to be higher and lower at different times of the year. Is that just an angular thing, or is the sun raising and lowering in the sky?
That's the whole point of the last discussion we had. I'm saying no. I'm saying just because it's at your zenith doesn't mean it's closer or further away.
We kind of can't. We can't really reference the sun directly at all, can we? Because we don't know what it is enough to directly reference it. So
yeah, but to you it appears the sun to be down, but to somebody else the sun is up.
Yeah, we're not talking relatively. We're talking just in terms of you not knowing what it does. If it moves 1 degree off your zenith, you can shoot up at 1,000 miles an hour and continue to measure the exact same angle the whole time you go up. Now, that to me is absolutely bonkers. But still, that's how it works.
Yeah, I find that a little crazy too.
Correct. You need to know the GP of it. Because once the team invokes GP, it's just to say, welcome to Flat Earth. Because you need that straight line to the GP in order to have the elevation angle from it. So anytime they invoke a GP, that's it. Game over.
Right, it's got 90 degrees at it to its zenith. It's on a circle of equal elevation. It's all flat plane once they say the words geographical position for a star. Yeah, right. That's welcome to Flat Earth time. Correct.
Shouldn't the GP be half the Earth, though?
What, super GP?
Yeah, super GP, yes.
So Chocolate's explaining that if the sun is vastly bigger than us and you've got parallel light rays coming into us, then you've got the entire one side of the Earth representative of the position below the sun. There is no local GP with the sun above it on a globe Earth. There's just a super GP covering half the Earth and lighting all of it.
Yeah, there can't be a sun over a tropic of Cancer or Capricorn or any other particular point at any time. It always, regardless of its supposed heliocentric distance from us at any time of the year, it always has to cover the whole side that it's lighting.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
$9.8 meters per second.
You need a phenomenon for that.
That's just a number. 9.8 meters per second isn't gravity. It's just maths for conceptual mediums and mass going down when that's defined by gas law.
Yeah, the 9.8 M2, that's just an acceleration rate. That doesn't prove anything. Sure it does. Never proved anything.
But we use it in everyday maths in many departments of physics.
No, it's an acceleration. Yeah. It's useful for an acceleration rate for solids in gases, i.e. the air that we're actually inhabiting. Well, that acceleration rate isn't so useful if you try and apply it to the same exact masses in a different medium, like water. Right? You can't just stick your scale at the bottom of the lake and then hope that you can chuck something in and weigh it the same, because obviously the medium behaves differently. So that convention is useful and used often and claimed to be universally true throughout the existence of the known universe, because it's just applied generally to solids moving through gases.
Actually, Nathan, I hate to do. I'm sorry, but I have to do it because I know you'd prefer that I did do this. It's actually based within a vacuum, not even within air. The calculation is based within the pre-assumption that something is falling through a vacuum. So
it's
without
minimal, no resistance. So not even with no medium.
And funny enough, things don't fall at
I
the
would
same
say a
rate
different
in a
medium.
vacuum either, which used to be their main argument.
What vacuum? Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
Yeah, what vacuum?
Are you gonna need at least 2 containers?
3, you'll need 3.
Net container 0.
Net chocolate was rumour joke. Yeah, net container 0. I was going to say, is this thing on? Any evidence of gas pressure without a container? Not
No,
net container 0.
Impossible.
We need a container to create a vacuum.
That's a container then.
A gradient.
That's a delta of gas pressure.
Which requires
if you have a container on both sides of the equation, you can just eliminate the container at that point.
Yeah, that's net container 0. No, that's nonsense. 2 containers don't make a right.
How about I can see your point that you require a container to have gas pressure, and then I'll go forth to tell you how we don't need a container for gas pressure? How about we do that?
That sounds about right. So concede
What
that
about pointing at the sky?
we don't achieve gas pressure without containment, but then go on to explain how Earth doesn't need containment because it's special.
Yep.
Wasn't there a video that Danny Faulkner posted up that he found on YouTube after telling the flat earthers just go to YouTube and pick up any video? And the video he posted was gas pressure without a container. And then when you watch the video, there's at least 3 containers bringing in the gas.
That's correct. So for the full story, Danny Faulkner went on a radio show and said that flat earthers are basically dumb and... Well, no, he didn't. He said that people are inquisitive and then fall for flat earth because they haven't approached people like him to get the answers. It seems like there isn't any answers to the flat earth questions that are posed, but he has the answers. So then he's approached by Nathan Thompson at a flat earth convention, and he's asked, how do you have gas pressure without a container? And he doesn't have an answer. So after the convention's concluded, he goes online, types into Google, how do you have gas pressure without a container? And the first result is Blue Marble Science example of 3 containers. So he posts that as a response to somebody. Here's how you have gas pressure without a container. Here's Blue Marble Science example with at least 2 containers.
How cool is that?
What's worse is I think in the interview he said something like, they just go on the internet and have a little look and don't find the answers, but I've got all the answers. So when he was, challenged to just literally do exactly what he criticised flat earthers with a stereotyping fallacy of doing, flat earthers just go on the internet and have a little look. Oh, right, what you mean you project out what you did when you were challenged and didn't have an answer, you went on the internet and found a nonsensical answer that had 2 containers in it when asked how you can have gas pressure without a container. Projection. Pure projection.
There was at least a 20-foot pipe with one end open at the very top, but all, as most people know, a pipe is a container. But he had the top open, but the top was 20 feet high, and he put the gas in there. He says, see, there you go.
Excuse me. I have a screenshot of Blue Marble asking for a citation that an open pipe is a container. Thank you.
Right.
It's an open container, a container.
They thought that open containers like a glass or a bucket are not a container because they were under the assumption that the container would mean a sealed container. and that was just not the case.
Well, no, it is the case. To have gas pressure maintained, to form things like gas pressure deltas, gradients, well, then you're going to need a sealed container for that gas pressure. A leaky container won't do it. Entropy's a bitch in that regard. The gas will fill the space. It doesn't need a very big hole. Yeah? If you've got a gas leak, yeah, does it just manage to just pool itself in one room? Or does it find any nook and cranny and work anywhere it wants to go with time? Yeah, with time it just escapes. Unless it's sealed. Yeah, they don't tend to sell butane in kind of open containers. They'll be alright, you'll still get the butane home. Right? No. Butane doesn't come in open containers. Now, temporarily, if you've got a long enough pipe with a big enough surface area, you can temporarily have gas within the container, having bashed on the sides of the pipe, not find its way to the top yet, and therefore measure a pressure in an open container. But with entropy, time, the gas will fill the space. It will leave the container, because sometimes the gas will hit the walls of the pipe, but sometimes it will hit the opening at the end and escape into the quote-unquote atmosphere, sphere-shaped air that doesn't need containment. So the gas still fills the space, even in a pipe with an open top, which is most definitely a container. Any more for any more? No?
Yeah, they try to do the Jedi mind trick. Don't look at my my containers here. Here's my gas. Hide the container, and then put it in the container. There is no containers here.
There are no containers.
They were just trying to redefine container. That's what I think they were doing.
Well, don't we have enough other things that verify what we're trying to say? You have an exhaust system in the car. It's got to get out somehow. You got the chimney. You got smokestacks in factories.
Yeah, temporary retention of gas pressure in an open container. Yeah, we don't have temporary gas pressure here. We've got permanent gas pressure, 14.7 psi at sea level. That's permanent. It's not like one day we come and go, oh no, there's no gas pressure. No, we just need to be in a sealed container for that to be the case. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or in Nathan Oakley live stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a member, and all that good stuff. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!